Hi, everybody. My name is Kelsey Redkey. I'm the editor of the Daily Chronicle. I'm joined today by our Sycamore reporter, Camden, and a couple of candidates that are running for Sycamore School Board this year. So before we get started, I wanted to just briefly do a little rundown of what voters will probably see on their Sycamore ballot. So the Sycamore School Board is a little different than some other school boards in our area. So the way that the school board is laid out currently, two candidates from each area can be represented. So for example, we have a couple candidates here. We have Cole, we have Michael, we have Eric Jones, who will not be joining us tonight. They will be running to represent Sycamore Township on the school board. So there's three candidates, but two seats for that. And then we have Heather, who also is running with Alan Zantout, who is also not with us tonight. And they are representing Cortland Township, but there can be two people from that. And then we also have Christian Copple, not here tonight, but Christian will be running to serve a 2-year unexpired term. It's an uncontested race as well on the school board. So your ballot might look a little different, but there will also be a little explanation on your ballot when you get to the polls. So, we're gonna let people introduce themselves a little bit, and Michael, we're gonna let you go first. If you just sort of tell us a little about yourself, Michael, and why you're running.
Thanks, Kelsey. So my name is Michael DeVito. I'm running for a second term on the Sycamore School Board. So I served from 2021 until present, and I've been the board president for the last 7 months after the unexpected passing of our 25-year board president, Jim Dombeck. As the past vice president, I ascended to the role of board president by virtue of that shift in structure. And so I've been spending the last 7 months working as hard as I can to try and get the board to continue the excellent work it's been doing, but also guide our district into a direction that I think adheres to the Illinois Association of School Boards best practice in board governance. I think a high flying level of achievement that every board in the school or in the state should achieve. Little about me personally. My wife was a Sycamore school teacher for many years before she became a stay-at-home mom with our son, Charlie. I'm a past graduate of Sycamore schools. I've lived in Sycamore my entire life. I work as an insurance broker and an adjunct professor for management, finance, and marketing over at Kishwaukee College. So I have a lot of connection to the community through the college, but I also have a lot of connection to the community through my work as an insurance broker, as well as through volunteer with some local community groups like the Rotaract Club. I was past president of the Rotary Club of Sycamore. I was past board member and director for the Turning Back Time Car Club. So I really like to get involved and help the community. The schools are extremely important. They hold a special place in my heart just because of how close I've been to Sycamore and because of what Sycamore has done for myself and my family. So I'm hopeful that I can continue to keep serving the board and the community.
Thanks, Michael. We'll go ahead and do you, Cole, next. If you want to just tell us a little about yourself and why you're running.
Great. Well, first off, thanks so much for hosting this, Kelsey and Camden and the Daily Chronicle. It's super important that the voters get to know the people running, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Jonathan Cole Regnery. I'm running for the Sycamore School Board because I want to serve my community. My two main priorities are increasing communication, collaboration, and transparency. So a lot of two-way communication with the community is necessary. While door knocking, I've talked to hundreds of people, and a lot of them say, why is the school board making these decisions, or how is the school board making these decisions? And I want to increase opportunities for two-way communication so that we can have more collaboration. It's difficult to do that without transparency. That leads to my second main priority, which is developing a 5-year comprehensive financial plan. If we have line of sight to our spend 2 or 3 years down the road, it's a whole lot easier to tell people, here's the decisions we're making and why. It's also a whole lot easier for the board to agenda set so that we can prioritize the needs of the community. we're going to have a much better time supporting students in the long run if we know what we're going to be doing 5 years from now. I have a lot of experience that will readily translate to success on the school board. That experience comes from two main places. First, I'm the president of the Pumpkin Festival Committee. So I serve the community and a public-facing board already. I've been president for 3 years. During that time, I brought back an annual budget. I cut wasted spending by almost 16% in a year, established the first ever scholarship, demonstrated our commitment to fiduciary responsibility by bonding the board. My most important or the proudest achievement from my presidency of the Pumpkin Fest is I increased the amount of not-for-profit directors on the board by about 50%. So that demonstrates a commitment to community collaboration and buy-in. Additionally, professionally, I'm a math professor at Rock Valley College, and there I sit on our dual credit committee. So I have an idea of how these large educational organizations are supposed to work. I understand the importance of education, but being a member of the dual credit committee gives me an opportunity to work with area high schools on helping their students obtain college credit, understanding their pathways a little bit better. So my community service, my professional experience leave me ready to hit the ground running on the board. I'm excited to champion what I see as some necessary transparency improvements, and I'm honored, to be considered.
Thanks, Cole. You're next, Heather. If you want to just tell us a little about yourself and why you're running.
I got my cheerleader over here at spring break. So I am Heather Tomlinson, and I am a mother in Sycamore School District. And I am also currently a BSW student at Aurora University. Currently, I am doing my internship at Hope Haven. I've been very active in community organizations for the last couple of years. I've been a community advocate and spoke out for Gracie Sasso when she was taken from us, and I also from there got more involved in the community, and I see the need for more education about not just school, more education in the schools about daily life. And I think that becoming a part of the school board is a good way to put some roots down in the community and see what our students are learning, and ways that we can continue to educate them and prepare them for the world beyond school. We have a really good school system in Sycamore. My kids go to Sycamore, and I love it. I want to keep that level of education where it's at, if not get even greater. And I currently work I'm at the Elwood House. I am a volunteer there. I do some of the I do some of the tours there. I'm also a member of the Sycamore Rotary Club, and I'm the secretary for a League of Women's Voters. So I think that becoming a member of the school board will not only enhance my understanding of what it takes to be what it takes to run the school, but it also will enhance my education on what our community needs as far as our children and our education goes. I think that preparing our kids for the future is the most important thing, and the best structured environment that they can do that in is going to get them, better prepared for the world.
Thanks, Heather.
All right. So our first question here of the night was we're going to start with Cole. We're going to have you go next. As Sycamore voters will get a chance to decide whether future school board elections will be open to all who live within the district boundaries. Right now, school board seats are limited to 2 people per geographic area or township. And the district officials have said lifting those boundaries or limitations could improve candidate interest and also help fill board seats or grow local interest for running for the office, which has been an issue in the past. Do you agree with this? Why or why not?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I do agree that the at-large referendum is a good thing and it should pass. I can tell you with absolute certainty that we've had elections before where you'll have 4 candidates running in the Sycamore Township. They'll all be excellent candidates. Only 3 of them can get on the board, and no one was running from another township. And then the board has to go out and appoint somebody undemocratically who didn't run for the board and didn't have an interest. So to me, the way that the population works out in Sycamore, it just makes sense to have this so that if you've got 4 qualified candidates that everybody wants, they can all run against each other and they can get on the board. You pick the best candidate from there.
Thank you. Next up, Heather.
I think that can go either way. It can kind of disbalance representation. So in a way, it could be good because all of the school board seats are filled, and that's what we want. We want a strong school board. But on the other side of things, it can also leave certain communities unrepresented. And I think it's important for each part of the community to be represented because the way people are experiencing ways of living on one side of the community is not the same way people are experiencing ways of living on the other side of community. So I'm kind of in between on that one, but having a full thriving school board is very important. So
Thank you. And Michael.
Yes. So I also would say I support the at-large referendum going through, mainly on the basis that I think voters have enough information in this community to be able to weigh out if their geographic region is a primary piece of importance, if their expertise in a particular set of skills is really important. But at the end of the day, being able to release township restrictions and letting voters decide based on all criteria who is going to best represent them on the school board, I think gives more power to our constituents. And like, to address some concern about imbalance, which I completely hear, I think a big piece is to understand that most of our schools fall within about 80% most of the Sycamore schools fall within Sycamore Township. So about 80% of our K through 5 schools fall within that township boundary. But more than that, I think the demographic that makes up the Sycamore School District itself has a lot more in common than what we may have seen back when we were heavily agrarian or when we had a lot of maybe small town farms that were maybe less represented through like South Grove and Mayfield Township. And so I think as things have shifted and there's a lot more commercial farming, I think that there's more of a need to open up the number of available seats to where most of our population's situated now. So I think that at large would be a really big win for Sycamore.
All right, we're going to go into our next question. Heather, you can answer this one first. What do you think is the greatest barrier to student success in Sycamore schools, and how would you address it?
I personally, from what I've experienced with Sycamore schools, I have seen a lot of growth and success from my kids. So if there are any barriers, I would say that it would probably be between a parent and teacher relationship. Since this is going to be my first time on the board, I am not familiar with all of the ins and outs of everything that's going on. But I do know that when staff feels appreciated and when parents feel communicated with, then that is the best case scenario for anybody. I would definitely, when it comes to things like this, lean on my more experienced board members to learn what we are seeing. I would rely on the teachers and the community. I think it's very important that the community reach out to us and to let us know what they're experiencing within the system. I do talk to several of my friends and I see things that are good with our school district and bad with our school district. So as long as we can keep an open line of communication and work through those issues immediately and effectively, then I see nothing but success from our school.
Thank you, Heather. Michael, same question to you. What do you think is the greatest barrier to Sycamore students' success, and how would you address it?
So, interesting question, because there's a couple of answers that I think about. But when I think about the root of the question, which is student success, I think about the overarching trust that the board needs to have with the community needs to have with the board needs to have with administration, teachers need to have with students with teachers, basically this large wheel of trust that we have to have. And so, like, while it would be easy to say aging facilities are a big issue, or it'd be easy to say that the fact that we're not fully at our adequacy level for evidence-based funding, or we could point to a number of disparities in terms of the financial pieces that go with being a tier 2 school. I think something that's within reach that the board can absolutely take ownership in and start working on immediately is building and strengthening the trust that we have with our teachers, our students, our stakeholders. And the way that we need to do that is by being more transparent and accessible. And what transparency means, beyond just saying, hey, here's a report, or here's information, or here's something that you as a community member can look at. It's making that information actually accessible to the public, something that they want to read, something that they can access, something that can inform them, so that way they can be a participant in change for the community. These are things that are well within the realm of control of the board. So speaking more specifically about what that trust looks like through transparency, it comes to being accountable. So having conversations in the public's view that are uncomfortable, things where we are actually critical of the work that we're doing, where we're going and saying, hey, we didn't meet this goal that our board set forth. Let's find out why. Let's make sure the community knows we didn't meet that. Not being afraid of that criticism, not constantly looking for ways to showcase only the best, but also highlighting where we're deficient. And when we start talking about where we're deficient, where we start talking about where we're falling short as a board, as a school district, again, that's a level of vulnerability that you can only have when you have a trusting relationship with the community. So that, to me, is, that's at ground zero. That has been something that I've been working on since August 12th as board president, when we brought our board policy committees to being open. Right? They used to not be open, so they're now open to the public. Anybody can view them and attend how we form board policy. Most recently, we just approved a business, service, and teaching and learning committee that are both going to be open to the public with posted meeting minutes, public participation. Long have been conversations where there have been board members involved in administrative level committees that, again, are not required to be open to the public, but prioritization of resources, talks of curriculum occur. My hope is that our board continues moving in the direction of bringing those conversations into the public's eye, which, again, I know is going to be met with scrutiny, as should any conversation in the public's eye be. But I think that scrutiny is going to build accountability, it's going to build trust, and it's going to move us in the direction that we need to be going.
Thanks, Michael. And Cole, same question to you. What do you think is the greatest barrier to student success in Sycamore schools, and how would you address it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I want to take the opportunity to discuss a little bit of the difference between, say, board work and admin work, right? So the board is supposed to govern and not manage. And I think that governance is one of the barriers to student success. With a lack of long-term planning, whether that's financial or curricular, and a lack of transparency, we're not able to make goals from a governance level and then audit those goals as we progress, making sure that the managerial work is aligning with the outcomes that the community and that the students deserve. So if we brought back appropriate governance and we had line of sight to long-term plans, we could audit those plans. We could bring in the parent teacher advisory committee, which doesn't exist. That's more on the handbook and policy side of things. But other committees, like President DeVito has mentioned, the teaching and learning committee, bring in curriculum committees and discuss with our experts, the teachers, and say, why is North Elementary doing so well at ELA and math? Let's learn from those wins there and spread them out. But it's not enough to just say, let's do it. We then have to have the governance level follow through the next year to say, okay, have we learned from our wins at North Elementary, and have we spread that success to our other elementary schools? So yeah, I think the biggest barrier to student success that a board member should be thinking about is we've got a lack of long-term planning, and we don't have effective governance that's serving our students and our community to the best of our capabilities.
Thanks, Cole.
Thank you.
All right, this next question is going to go to Michael first. Michael and everyone, do you believe the district is prioritizing spending in the correct areas? And where would you like the dollars to go if you are elected for another term, or for your first term for the others?
So great question. Prioritizing of spending, a couple things come to mind. The budget process and the tax levy process. So historically, our board's involvement in the budget process has been when it was presented the preliminary budget information in, again, a business meeting, an admin business meeting. 2 board members were appointed to it. It was an admin meeting, so it wasn't something that the public was involved in. That information was usually relayed back to the board. Hey, here's information that we should know about from a budgeting standpoint, usually happened in April. Then the next time we would review that budget, more or less the proposed budget or preliminary budget, more or less, would be around August, September. The board would be asked to approve a tentative budget. We'd host a public hearing. Then again, the board would approve the budget and things would be underway. This past October, we adopted a budget calendar, and that budget calendar reworked that budget process and that levy process. And it basically laid, I think, the foundation for what business service will do, which is to bring to the public the deliberative process of prioritization of resources. So a lot to unpack there. But the gist of it is the public needs to be involved at the early stages of how we prioritize funding to discretionary and non-discretionary programs. And the way that we're going to do that is by mapping out a timeline like we have, but also by now bringing those conversations to the Business Service Committee that now exists as of March 18th. And the way I see that being implemented is going to be sort of quarterly conversation of how that spending is being placed in terms of non-discretionary categories. So let's just say 80 cents of every dollar is spoken for by non-discretionary spending, but those 20 cents, be it extracurriculars, be it some early childhood pieces, be it some after-school programs. What are the dollars and cents ramifications of those programs, expanding those programs? How are we using student fees to supplement those costs and to offer more of them? So what I'd really like to be able to see us do is create a narrative to the public that says, hey, here is how we're currently prioritizing our spending. So here's the discretionary spending. Here's how it's being prioritized. Here's when we're making that decision to prioritize it. Here's how it links to our goal setting. And so if you have concern about prioritization to a particular program, when you can speak up and say your piece about that is going to be at this point in time. We're under development, right? This is something that started in October with that budget calendar and is now spilling into what will be the Business Services Committee from this March 18th meeting. But what you see that process look like from a public standpoint is going to be a lot more open in the next 12 months than what I think the board has been and the community has been used to. Speaking specifically to my personal priorities, I would say Tier 1 instruction is obviously critical. And when we're below adequacy on evidence-based funding, we have to be really diligent about prioritizing pilot programs that work, which comes to the Teaching and Learning Committee. So pilot programs, I think, need to be better monitored by our board. And this is, again, not to say that there's going to be managerial involvement, but more governance in terms of, is this pilot program working? What is the efficacy of the dollars spent? And I think that needs to be reported on to the community in a much more accessible way. So I'm hopeful that the Teaching and Learning Committee is going to be able to showcase those pilot programs for efficacy, so that way we can then be more clear on how we're prioritizing resources. So that's my general opinion on the issue, Kim.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Cole.
Let me unmute myself first there. Do I believe the district is prioritizing spend in the correct areas? It's a difficult question, but it closely aligns with my priorities, which are we need more transparency and we need a 5-year financial plan. It's very difficult for me to sit here and say, yes, our spend is correctly prioritized if I don't have an accurate forecast of where our spend is going to be 3, 4, and 5 years out. So we owe it to the public to show them we project 4 or 5 years from now spending this much on facilities. We project 4 or 5 years from now spending this much on instruction, direct instruction. It's only then that we have those future focused numbers mapped out that we can say, well, admin, take a month, come back to us with some options, right? What if we go for a more aggressive facility spend or a less aggressive facility spend? What ramifications does that have on our instructional spend? So I think it's very difficult to tell. One specific area of curiosity for me on our prioritization of spend is in our transportation fund. We spend around $2.5 million in that per year. We have around $2.5 million in income per year. But the transportation fund carries in cash close to 7 million, maybe 6.5 million. So there's millions of dollars that are just sitting there. And I don't think that that is actively being prioritized very well, especially if you listen to how much facilities maintenance is needed. We don't want to be in a situation where we have to issue bonds for a roof repair like we were in 2020. We want to make sure with future focused transparency, we have understanding of our priorities in advance and can adjust now to meet them.
Thank you, Cole. And next up, Heather.
So with this, I'm more of a people person than a numbers person. And I do believe though that as far as spending goes from this point on, that we should be a little paused on that before we go and decide to start implementing a bunch of new programs. Because on a federal level, a lot of organizations in our community are possibly losing a lot of money, and people in our community are going to have to shift where their money is going to supplement those organizations. The school, we are all organizations that rely on community funding, that rely on taxes, and sometimes we rely on volunteers, and we rely on donations for things. So I think we need to be conscious of what the other organizations in our community are going to be going through, and make sure that our budget doesn't put us in a situation to where we have to start losing money because another organization needs it, and the community decides things are a little more needed over here than over here, and just be aware of that.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our next question. Cole, you can answer this one first. Do you support initiatives and programs in Sycamore schools centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Why or why not? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry.
Fine.
Yeah, do I support programs centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion? I grew up in Sycamore schools. I learned a lot in Sycamore schools. I feel blessed to have gone through them. I think they do an excellent job. I remember learning about Martin Luther King Jr. in the 3rd grade in Mrs. Majerus's class, and I thought that was very formative and important. And I want to make sure we give our students access to a quality education that involves, the story of America. So yeah, I mean, I support programs that, discuss Martin Luther King Jr. just the same that I got. We get 7% of our funding from the federal government, and so we have to make sure that we are in line with, requisite federal programs as they come out, and make sure we're following the law. But Yeah, I think diversity is a good thing. And again, was happy to have gone through Sycamore schools and felt like I learned a lot about it when I was there.
Thanks, Cole. And Heather, same question to you. Do you support initiatives and programs in Sycamore schools centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Why or why not?
Well, I do believe that this also includes 504s and IEPs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of our children have 504s and IEPs, and I think that it is extremely important, and I don't see why we would change things now. We do obviously, as Cole said, have to go in line with the federal funding to keep our schools supported. So, it's a very important thing to keep on the table right now, and I feel like we should push through this as long as we possibly can.
Thank you, Heather. Michael, same question to you. Do you support initiatives and programs in Sycamore schools centered around DEI? Why or why not?
So that level of individual programming, I can say with certainty as a board member, I've never been involved in. I would categorize, the curriculum choices that are offered at the school district to be at the managerial level. And so from like a governance standpoint, I've been looking to, with teaching and learning, bring back the textbook approval process, instructional and curricular materials being put on public display for community input and community feedback. For me to say that I've been involved in, picking what gets taught in the schools or how it gets taught in the schools, it's challenging on a number of levels, only because I don't know that that level of specificity is ever something that a board member should be involved in. So I think about board policy 640. I think about board policy 6330, and these are related to instructional and curriculum choices. And so a lot of these are derived from the district curricular committees. So what I would like to see more of is that these curriculum choices and their respective efficacy in terms of like learning outcomes and student achievement as it relates to what ties to the evidence-based funding model have reported efficacy to the community. And if those programs encompass, like what Cole said, like Martin Luther King, or if those programs are tied specifically like to what Heather said, to like, individualized education plans, I mean, I trust our educators and the experts at hand to curate that curriculum. But at the board level, I really want to make sure that the community is able to access and pine in on those curricular choices when those points of decision come in, again, related to the prioritization of resources for particular curriculum. And like a good example of that is like our Bridges program. It's been like a 2-year-long pilot that we're going to be approving as a board on April 22nd. Not at any point in time in that conversation, will the subject matter of the Bridges curriculum be the focal point of board decision, but I think the efficacy of student achievement to the Bridges program. And so as board president, I want to keep the conversation related to student achievement and what's working and what's not. And nothing, as far as I'm concerned, at a national level, I think we have to be should really influence that student efficacy piece. It needs to be data driven. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Michael. It does.
All right. So our next question, it'll first go to you, Michael. So at the last school board meeting on March 18th, some Sycamore students spoke at the school board about how they're worried some higher level math and science classes may not be offered next year. While the master class schedule has not been established yet, but it has been worked on for a few months by school administration officials. What do you think should be a focus of the district's high school curriculum?
Another excellent question. So kind of in good timing, because you got my last answer. This historically has been a very murky area for the board. And what I would like to see is more stringent adherence to our board policy as it relates to course offerings and like sequential course offerings. Personally, as far as if we do or don't run particular classes at the high school, I think that level of decision making should be in, I think the board needs to be involved in that, but the criteria to apply to if and what we offer needs to be deeply rooted in what is the cost benefit, what's been historical student achievement, and ultimately I love that the students came and spoke at the board meeting. I think we need more of that, but I would love that they could be involved earlier in the stage of those choices. I'd love it if parents and teachers could be involved earlier in the stages of those choices. And so I think that there's a roadmap for that in our board policy. I think that the work that the new Teaching and Learning Committee is going to do is going to give those stakeholders a voice, so that way they can have, rather than getting blindsided by a potential shift in a course schedule from the district. I think that having some buy-in at the early stages of those prioritization choices is what the Teaching and Learning Committee is going to do. So personally speaking, I think the board needs to better adhere to its own policy as it relates to curricular offerings and public's involvement in those offerings. And the Teaching and Learning Committee, I think, is the board's commitment to that.
Thank you, Michael. Cole, you're next up. Recently, Sycamore students, expressed some concern that some higher level math and science classes may not be offered at the high school next year. What do you think should be the district's focus for the high school curriculum?
So I was at that meeting. I was also really proud of those students for coming and speaking up. Two of their parents came and spoke up as well. If we had that level of community involvement and engagement at every board meeting, I think this district would be in a much healthier place. So very supportive of the community coming out to speak. And I would love to have more of that when I'm on the board. In specific, this is a transparency issue. So like I said, communication, collaboration, and transparency. Why is it that the decision on how these higher level science classes are running is so murky? Why are we only hearing about it in March? One of the parents who commented rightly pointed out that in board policy, it dictates that sequential classes will be offered even at lower caps. It doesn't say that exactly, but something like that. These sequential classes should be offered. And so it's policy that these classes should be offered. I think the students were anticipating these classes were going to be offered, as were their parents. And it's a transparency issue that there is not two-way dialogue and decision-making about what classes are going to be offered that are obviously very important to our college-bound students. But all classes, we need transparency on how they're going to decide to be offered. I'd love it if we had more career and tech elective classes offered. I'd love it if we had more higher level science classes to be offered. If we had robust committees, like a teaching and learning committee that was subject to the Open Meetings Act and people came to it and commented publicly, we would, build a lot of credibility and goodwill with people in what we're choosing to offer and why. So I support those classes being offered. I was happy to have the community involvement, and I strongly encourage everybody to attend these meetings and speak their mind.
Thank you, Cole. Heather, same question for you. Recently, Sycamore students have expressed concern over the availability of some higher level math and science classes at the Sycamore High School. What do you think should be the focus of the district's high school curriculum?
I think that's a great question. I was at that meeting too, and I was very surprised that that topic was brought up. I actually it was very interesting because the meeting was on Tuesday and Thursday was the Sycamore Middle School Science Fair. So not sure if it had anything to do with that, but I did go to the science fair and I did meet the NIU STEM, the women's STEM group. And I was kind of, my solution driven brain was kind of thinking of ways that if for some for unforeseeable reason, because I don't know the background on this, so I can't really speak to as to why these programs are not being offered anymore. But even our college as close as NIU has a STEM program. And so, and the majority of the kids that spoke up were females. I think there was one boy there and the rest were girls. So, I don't know if that's something we could align with if our potential programs are cut. I know that the Sycamore does work with KISH for KEC programs. So I think that there might be ways that we could still work around it. I don't know, like I said, I don't know the background of this. I don't know the details of it, but I am definitely willing to help find solutions.
Thank you, Heather.
All right, we are going to go into our closings now. Thank you guys for your answers to our questions and for keeping it at 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to start with Heather. It's a simple one. If you want to just go ahead and tell us why Sycamore voters should vote for you.
So I think Sycamore voters should vote for me because I bring a fresh perspective. I am not on the board. I am a mom in the school district, and I have had a lot of experience with the kids at the school, with the teachers, and I am all about Sycamore. I love what Sycamore teachers have done to help my son Alex. He is, he's struggled through um, the years, and the teachers have been absolutely amazing. And I want to make sure that our teachers are supported, that our kids that need the extra support are supported. And, just it's amazing what Sycamore programs offer. Being in the Rotary, we have a kid that we give a scholarship to once a month, a senior, and the list of accomplishments that these kids come with is just mind-blowing, and it's amazing. And I love being a part of this community, and I want to make sure that our kids continue to get the quality education that they deserve.
Thank you so much, Heather. Michael, simple question. Why should people vote for you?
Well, thanks, Kelsey, and thanks again for the opportunity to have this forum. So I think it's really great for voters. Sycamore School District and the community is at an inflection point. Right now, voters are being asked to choose in a contested election the direction that the district will go. And I think that what I really want to underscore here is that the last 7 months of work that I've done as the board president has been centered around making more transparent and accessible what the board does, why it does it, and bringing people who are most close to the outcomes to the table. I think that work is well underway. I think that March 18th board meeting is a landmark board meeting that shows that the board is behind and committed to bringing people in from the outside, bringing students and parents and teachers in to the decision-making process. I think that the notion that involving more people in the process can hurt student outcomes, I think that argument of bureaucracy is a sort of problem is a defunct one. I think what we need to emphasize now more than ever is process. We need to bring more people into the decision-making process, more stakeholders. We need to get more buy-in from the community. And if Sycamore and Sycamore voters are interested in seeing what's going on in terms of their board and seeing how those decisions are being made, and more importantly, being able to speak up and have their voices heard with how those decisions are being made, I think that they will find that the school board going forward is going to receive that really well. And I'd like to think that with my leadership, we can get there. So I'm really counting on Sycamore voters to turn out in this election and to support transparency and to support board accountability and to know that I am welcome and ready for criticism. And in fact, we're looking for it.
Thank you, Michael. And Cole, last but certainly not least, why should people vote for you?
You should vote for me for the Sycamore School Board because I want to do the right thing and I have the skills and experience to do it. So I'm running for the board to pay it forward. I've lived in Sycamore my whole life. I'm a product of the schools. They helped make me who I am today. I'm a math professor. I believe in education. I'm Pumpkin Fest president. I serve the community. I love the community. Those skills and experience are going to enable me to hit the ground running and help get this board on the right track for effective governance. That means increasing communication, increasing collaboration, and increasing transparency. That means supporting students in a responsible manner with a 5-year comprehensive financial plan. The mission is simple: empower all learners to succeed in their world. Thanks.
Thank you, Cole, and thank you, Michael and Heather and Camden and everyone who joined us tonight. So just a reminder to our viewers, this is not the only way that you can learn about candidates before you go to the polls. You can certainly watch this video, but we have a lot more on our Election Central webpage. The URL for that is www.shawlocal.com/daily-chronicle/election. Just this past week, we published our 2025 Daily Chronicle Voter Guide. That is also online, so you can go there. You can read more about these candidates for school board. You can read about other candidates in your community. These people also filled out a questionnaire, so you can read more about their campaign platform online and in print. Early voting is already underway, so you can cast your ballot right now if you want to. And election day is April 1st. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.